Welcome to Food Talk for Health, because you really are what you eat. Here is your host, Tonya King.
Joining me today is longevity expert, New York Times bestselling author Dan Buettner. Dan, it's a pleasure to talk to you about the blue zones today.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk about the blue zones, Tonya.
So you have a lot going on. You have a new book, you have a new film, you have a new program for us to check out. You've been working on the blue zones for a long time. And I'm curious if your research has changed. Have you noticed any changes over these years?
Many changes. Since I first identified the blue zones, it's attracted hundreds of scientists, and I've had a front row seat to their research. And first of all, there's a lot more insights. We know, for example, that these people not only live longer according to the numbers, but their telomeres are longer, which means that they're biologically younger, and that's what we all want. But on the sadder side of things, Okinawa, which was one of our first blue zones and arguably the most extraordinary, we're delisting that because thanks to kind of the standard American diet, washing up on its shores and freeways, we're delisting it as a blue zone. And meanwhile, we found a new blue zone, Blue Zone 2.0 in Singapore.
Wow. Now, that's really an interesting place. What did you discover in Singapore?
Well, in one lifetime, life expectancy there has gone up by almost 25 years. And they now are the world's reigning champ for having the longest, healthiest life expectancy in the world. They live about a dozen good years longer than Americans do. And what's extraordinary about it is they've manufactured this blue zone. So it's not one of these ancient cultures that we just found up in the villages, in the highlands, but rather a very modern city with a very intentional government that has created manifestly the healthiest people on earth, and through a series of very identifiable steps.
That makes me wonder if the fast food industry has had any impact on that particular area as a blue zone.
Well, of course it has. Since in my lifetime, the number of fast food places has grown by a factor of about 25. And we know about 680,000 Americans die prematurely by eating the standard American diet. Meanwhile, if you look at the diets of the original blue zones, and we actually did a meta-analysis, last 100 years, 155 dietary studies. And if you want to know what a centenarian ate to live to be 100, you can see very clearly it's 90 to 98% whole food, plant-based. They're eating mostly things like sweet potatoes, which the longest of women ate most of their life, greens, snacked on nuts, and the cornerstone of every longevity diet in the world is beans. And if you're eating a cup of beans a day, it's probably worth about 4 extra years of life expectancy.
And is that any type of beans?
Any type of beans, black beans and corn tortilla. You put the two together, put some hot sauce on there. You have a whole protein, all the amino acids. Beans and rice, another magical combination. Hummus from chickpeas. That they all check the box. And the genius blue zones offer us, and I include a lot of this in my book, Blue Zone Secrets for Living Longer, are the recipes from these people who know how to take these longevity ingredients and make them taste delicious.
Thinking of recipes and ideas for eating, I want to ask you about your 7-day longevity reset. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's available at danbuettner.com. And the idea behind that, the central piece of wisdom we learned from these blue zones is not to pursue health. In other words, in America, we think to get healthier, to live longer, we go out and get a new diet or exercise program or a supplement regimen. None of that really seems to work in the long run. In blue zones, longevity ensues. In other words, it's a product of their environment. So the 7-day reset shows you how to set up your kitchen, your social network, your workplace. So it's easier to make healthy decisions unconsciously, and then shows you a few of the very best recipes we have from my 3 cookbooks.
And, a lot of people think, okay, 7 days, I can't change in 7 days, but it sounds like it's a great way to give you a kickstart to change that part of life.
Yes. I mean, for example, you can set up your kitchen in such a way so you mindlessly consume 150 fewer calories every day. And some of the tricks we learned these are evidence-based tricks, is establishing a junk food drawer that's out of the way, taking the toaster off the counter, tend to lose about 6 pounds after 2 years, putting a big,
Wow.
beautiful fruit bowl on the counter, keeping it full, and making sure you don't have a bag of chips on the counter with one of those clips. Most of us are on what I call a seafood diet. We eat the food we see. So putting healthy food in view is going to make it a lot easier. And then the best thing any mom can do if she wants to lose weight and see her family thrive is learn how to make a half a dozen plant-based dishes that her family loves. And the Blue Zone dishes, by the way, it's all inexpensive peasant food, just made to taste delicious.
Well, I know I follow you on Instagram and you're a big proponent of sourdough bread. That's also a very good thing to do as far as eating bread.
It's counterintuitive because it tastes so delicious, but it actually has about 2% the gluten of normal white bread. And in 2 studies done in one of our Blue Zones, Sardinia, we found that it lowers the glycemic load of the entire meal. In other words, the calories and sugars that you consume at lunch, if you're eating a piece of sourdough bread with it, are absorbed more slowly, making it more likely that energy ends up in activity instead of on your backside.
That's a pretty encouraging thing as far as a whole healthy diet, if you will. Now, tell me about the Netflix special.
Well, we spent the better part of 2 years going back to all the Blue Zones and bringing them up to date. I present then the findings we made, and then I show we're actually putting the wisdom of these Blue Zones to work in 72 cities. We feature Phoenix, Arizona, in the Netflix documentary. But the core idea here is that instead of trying to change people's behavior, if you change their environment so the healthy choice is the easy choice, it works whether it's in your home, whether it's in your workplace, or whether it's in an entire city. And we've proved it works. And we just had the premiere party last night. If you go to Netflix today, you'll see 4-part series beginning. It's massively entertaining, I think, and you'll walk away knowing how to add a few good years into your life.
Boy, it sounds great. We're talking with Dan Buettner. The new book is The Blue Zone Secrets for Living Longer. So does this one give us more detail compared to the first 2 books, or how is this different?
First of all, I'm a writer for National Geographic, and I always have great photographers with me. So this book is like a coffee table book. It's gorgeous. It brings up to date the first 5 Blue Zones. But as I mentioned, since I found these things, it's attracted hundreds of academics, and I've been able to cherry pick their best findings and include them here. But then this book is really a manual for how to take this wisdom and put it to work in your life. The average American, even though life expectancy is dropping in America, and it has been dropping for the last 3 years, this book can show the average American how to gain an extra 10 years. And it's not beyond your reach, and it's not with supplements or biohacks or metformin or something. It's harnessing the wisdom of people who've actually achieved longevity.
Well, you're making a real difference in a lot of people's lives, Dan. So it's really exciting what you're doing, and I wish you lots of luck and success. How can we find you on social media? I'm
at Dan Buettner or danbuettner.com. And if you have a question, I always answer my own direct messages. And I'm just so delighted that you took the time to talk to me. And I especially want to thank the people who actually took this time to listen to us.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right. You have a wonderful day.
Thanks. You too.
You've been listening to Food Talk for Health with Tonya King. Thanks for joining us. Eat well to be well.